Hey, hey, warrior saints. Glad to have you beautiful people in with us today on this glorious, magnificent, marvelous Friday. Welcome to today's edition of our Crucifixional live stream. All right, my dad was visiting this past week, and it was amazing. It was absolutely wonderful. And while he was there, some people were going to come over to the house, and we were, tidying up and getting everything ready. And it's amazing how it happens, but the recycling, we have like a tiny trash can that holds all of our recycling, but there is a inordinate amount of large boxes that show up in our house. I don't know where they're all coming from. Don't really know how they all get there, sometimes from Costco, sometimes Amazon packages. But for whatever reason, there always seems to be stuff that's too big to go into the trash can that we use for the recycling bin. And so there's an area in the kitchen that just collects all the recycling, and stuff starts to get piled up, and it starts to get higher and higher, and it starts to get start to come out from up against the wall and start encroaching on the space in the kitchen. Especially when people are coming over, we try to make sure that that's not there because it does not look good. So we had a situation where people were gonna stop by, and my wife asked me a question. Are you planning on taking out the recycling? Now, my initial reaction was about to be, look, I'm tired, I'm stressed, there's a ton going on, I'll get to it before they show up, but let me do all these other things that I have decided are more important than what you have currently decided is more important. That would have been a mistake. That would not have gone well. I know from my experiences in my very long marriage that is almost at 5 years, which is not a very long marriage at all, but I understand it's still not, it's long enough to know that that was not the way to go. I instead said, oh yeah, dear, I was about to get to that right next. And then I got up, grabbed all of the recycling, and carried it all out to the recycling bin. Now, I mentioned that my dad was there. My dad and my mother were married, had a beautiful marriage. They would have celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary the year that she died. So 30 years of experience in marriage is a lot more than 5. And all I saw as I was walking past with all of the recycling bin was my dad just going, in other words, he was telling me I did a good job. I didn't fall into the trap. I didn't make a bad decision. I relied on my experience. Now, it's a trite example, but it highlights for us the value of experiences in our decision making. It highlights for us how important it is for us to remember that we have been in certain situations before. And having been in those situations, we might know how not to react. And I'm deliberate in saying that because it doesn't always mean that we know how to react, but it almost certainly tells us that we know how not to react. Sometimes we still fall into the same traps, but you'd hope that after a few times making the same mistakes, you start to learn from those mistakes. I even think there's a saying about making sure that we learn from our mistakes. I even think there's something else about those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Regardless of all of those wonderful cliches, the point is the same. We have to learn from our mistakes. We have to learn from those situations. We see this beautiful parable in Matthew's 25th chapter. Now, the other day we talked about the parable of the talents, which came from Matthew's 25th chapter. This one is from just before that. It's the parable of the 10 virgins. And it's talking about preparedness and how important it is to be prepared. But the way that we know how to prepare and how to be prepared is by relying on our past experiences, by understanding where we've been so that we can see where we're going. In Matthew 25, we hear, the kingdom of heaven shall be compared to 10 maidens, took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 were wise, 5 were foolish. And when the foolish took their lamps, they didn't have enough oil. When the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. The bridegroom was late, they all slept, and at midnight there was a cry, behold the bridegroom, come out to meet him. All of them, rose and trimmed their lamps. They started to relight them. The foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out. The wise were funny. They said, there won't be enough for us and you. Go buy more. So they went out to buy, and the bridegroom came while they were gone. Those who were ready, those who were prepared, those who relied on their experiences in the past and knew to have enough oil, went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was shut. Afterwards, the other maidens came, saying, Lord, open to us. But he replied, I do not know you. There's a lot happening in there. Suffice it to say, they knew to have enough oil, and they were able to enter into the marriage feast. They were ready. And how do we get ready? We get ready based on what we know is coming, what we can anticipate based on what we've had happen in the past. My very first year working at St. George, I found out that there was an event that was an annual event called the Super Bowl. Now, in other places where I had been, they also celebrated the Super Bowl, S-O-U-P-E-R, on Super Bowl Sunday, S-U-P-E-R, and would just raise canned goods. They would collect canned goods and donate them to a food pantry. What I come to find out when I got here is they actually made bowls of soup, sold them to the parish, and then donated all of the proceeds to an organization that does a lot of really great work called International Orthodox Christian Charities. I was completely unprepared for that event because I had in my mind, based on my past experiences, what was coming. And it was vastly different than what I was prepared for. But we were able to pull it off because I relied on the experiences of others in my decision-making process. And then the following year, I knew what was coming. I didn't make that same mistake a second time. I knew that I had to get ready a whole lot earlier. I knew I needed to start advertising earlier. And I knew that I needed to make certain changes in what was going on in my thought process so that things could happen. But because of my experience of not being prepared, I was then able to be prepared moving forward. And the parable ends with this wonderful phrase, watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour. In essence, we always need to be prepared. We always need to be ready. And we need to have these experiences that we can rely on so that we can be out there and getting things ready. Now, some of us might not have as many experiences as others. Some of us might be farther along the path as we're walking that way of the warrior saint, having those experiences that can then inform future decisions. That's precisely where we come in. We're on this path with you. We might be at different points on that path, but from all of our experiences, we want to share with you what we know to work, what we know will help us succeed in our desire to live a crucifixional life. And that's why we always urge you to join us. Visit us at warriorsaints.org. Get on the way of the warrior saint. We're going to come out with this 6-step plan. It's coming soon that is going to be there for you to help you enact certain steps in your life so that you can get out there, make the decisions you need to make, and make it happen, Captain. We can't wait to have you join us. Visit us, warriorsaints.org. I can't urge you enough to do that. We will be back on Sunday with Orthros and Divine Liturgy at 9 and 10 a.m. Pacific. And we'll be back again on Monday with more of our Crucifixional live stream. And until we see you next time, you keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.